this small discussion will be about counterpoint, which was mentioned this morning. Actually, I had a... But maybe you just tell the audience who you are, and then we start.
I'm Christopher Roman, and I've been working with Bill and the company since 1999.
And I'm Cyril, and I've been in company since 11 years.
And I'm Anders Zabala, and I've been working with Bill since 1992.
So, and I'm Peter, and I've never been working with the company. I'm sorry for this. I mean it. But so on counterpoint, the thing was when I was talking to Christopher yesterday about how will we tackle this topic, that we immediately completely misunderstood each other, and because I was as I grew up in the orbit of Rosas, I immediately had this kind of very Bach-like concept of counterpoint, on which Christopher said, no, you should more think about it as a thriller. And then I was a bit surprised, and then I said, after some explanation, I said, aha, but you're talking about Georges Perec and La Disparition, which is a thriller in which a book in which the letter E has mysteriously disappeared, not to pop up again. And I think that was our starting point, actually, that the thriller, it triggered for me an idea of, yes, I can relate to that and I can see it. So, but maybe you explain a bit what thriller for you means in relation to making choreography when you're working on it.
Well, I think that it was a spontaneous sort of metaphor to say it's like a thriller. If you're looking at a good thriller, throughout, maybe there are two people going through the storyline, and there's always a suspicion of who did it, who's murdered. Bobby Sue got murdered, and we're looking for the murderer. And there's a through line through the entire piece, and there's always suspicion or doubt cast on a person, and they could have done it. Oh, no, they couldn't have done it. Oh, but maybe they did because it's too simple, it's too easy that they did it. So the audience member is constantly trying to figure out who done it, but everybody is somehow linked. And so that was my analogy of counterpoint in terms of how we work. Just everybody is linked, and there's a common thread, and there's a Bobby Sue's murdered. So we all have the same thematic, we all have the same starting point, but we all have different points of view from it. So that's how I tried to describe counterpoint. And then you brought up this example of the disappearance, and then that brought me to, if the E has disappeared in all of the text, we experience that in a different way, that perhaps if Under has made a role within the context of the creation, and Under is gone, and then we have to replace Under, then that's different. So if Under can make the noise and I can't, I have to come up with a different noise, like or so we replace these E's in our own ways. So I don't think that's counterpuntal, but in terms of what you're speaking about, I believe that's how we have to function in the company. There's not necessarily replacements, but what is valid for the structure, for the piece, for the volumes of things. Yeah.
Well, the work is always extremely compositional, so we are, I like to think, you can put it with music or with, movement, what is the sound, what is the body making. And these counterpoints are constantly there, necessary, absolutely necessary, so that we have just different rhythms and different spatial compositions, and otherwise, so to avoid, unless it is a conscious flat, theatrical flat, musical flat, movement, everything is related. So we immediately, especially talking about as on the field, like making, improvising, we constantly, we trained, since years and hours, and it can be exactly different noise, silence, two people, agreement, suspicion about, you know, so all this gives many different colors, and the entity, it breathes and it survives and it lives then by itself. We have our cues and our, you know, theme, but then that would be, you know, so it is extremely, yeah, it's about composing.
But it's interesting because I think there's two moments in which this composing or this working with counterpoint can be there. That's of course in rehearsal moments, but when it's on the stage, it seems, as you describe it, especially, it's as if you're also outside and inside. This is very special because as far as I have seen ballet companies, you're in or you're out, but you're not like watching it while doing it. And this, it seems like you're talking about this kind of instant composition as being mentally in two places, or how do I have to understand this?
Well, if you're talking about music and counterpoint in music, the first violin has to listen to the second violin, so they're in dialogue. Mm-hmm. So even musically, the other one has to pay attention to the other. So that's what we're constantly doing. We're constantly paying attention, referring, expanding on, in relation to, in opposition to one another on stage. It really is truly an ensemble company. We don't look at it as a virtuosic kind of situation. It is ensemble. It is give and take, more or less. We can feel the different volumes of each other on stage, of who's giving and when you need to fit yourself in, when you need to step back and be silent and give space for yourself, for your own composition, and for the composition of others and of the whole.
Mm-hmm. But it's interesting that you use the word feeling the others, because, well, we think usually of theater or dance as visual art, as which by essence or in a tradition is thought of as something that there's an ideal view position to assess the whole piece and to understand the piece. Actually, you seem to talk about a completely multifocal presence, and in which actually any point of view could be the right point of view. For instance, being on the stage.
We're kind of multitask freaks, I think.
Yeah, we train in 15 different ways. Always one, two, three ideas. You can always, bring a new idea, or Bill or any of us. But it is definitely, the body and the mind. If it's one, we always tend to cut the head, but actually, is one. So this feeling of whether it's theatrically, musically, physically. So it is. That's why perhaps for me is one of the most I always say the 3D company. It is 3D. We've been trying to break it for years with improv technologies and this and that, so that it is this aesthetic ballet night. I mean, you are that as a human. I mean, you can. Everybody, the audience is free to look at it this way, but we are precisely working into all these many different approaches to make it all. It has to be. It has to go. No, it has to go beyond. Otherwise, you have a nice variation or a cool mover, but in 1 minute, it has to mean something. Or it's like ballet technique also. Another technique, or musician acting. It has to transcend, I believe. And that's what we're trying, very, very hard, and Bill as well, composing, editing, making, that it I said it breathes. It breathes.
I remember, was it in 1999, Endless House? Was it that year? I remember it blew my mind. That it was for days I couldn't simply understand how you did it. I mean, not the first part, which is of course quite obvious how you do it, but the second part where very soon you discover, of course, that you will never see the whole piece, but probably you were also in the same situation of not ever being able to see the whole piece. So then how? So this whole thing about balancing and listening to each other then becomes like a kind of
it's like an extrasensory perception.
Yes,
if you're doing something, if I would do something with Under in Endless House on the other side of the stage, I still had to hear what was going on at the opposite side and be aware of it, as well as the music that was playing, as well as the three different things that I was trying to bind together as part of my Aufgabe, my tasks, with what I was doing with Under, and then have 4 other people pass by me, move a wall, run down to the other side of the stage and join in at the precise time that I needed to be there, so that the weight of the structure didn't tip to one side. So you're constantly just in negotiation with volumes of things.
And in the event, brutalizing the audience sometimes.
Maybe, yeah. If they didn't
Well, I
back.
remember that I was just kicked out of my chair at a certain point. Like, go away. Was more polite. But was that the first experience you had with this kind of I've in
With the
as far
audience.
with this kind of huge architecture? I thought it was the first.
For me personally, it was, yeah.
Yes.
I was my first year in the company.
that you had this kind of completely multifocal or stretched out. Yeah, sure, but no, but was that the first time that you tried this?
Well, I mean, I think the space was different, but if you look at the choreographies from Mr. Forsythe, there is like you constantly solicited to go like this. Things are slipping under your feet. Things are given to you. Things are disappearing. It's like it always goes like this. I mean, Endless House, I think, is a good example because one is in the situation is to actually move the body around, and it's probably obvious. But if you look at other ballets, it's like it is constantly slipping under your feet. It is constantly changing. It's actually always in counterpoint, I guess. And yeah. So I mean I think it's like I don't think it's like just specific to that ballet, but it's yeah, it's just I think something that is recurrent in his work.
What Surreal says is very relevant. Is that it's in a certain sense it's the first choreographic object because the audience member had to move, otherwise they didn't see the performance. So that it actually put them in motion. Thank you.
You're welcome. I think I would like to just make a little parenthesis. We were talking about movies before and counterpoint. I think a great example of counterpoint. Do you guys know Transformers? And the fights in Transformers? This is the best example of counterpoint. Transformers. The fights in Transformers. It's so musical. It's so surprising. It is so, like, it just goes in any direction. It's like it changes your focus. It surprises you. It's like this is like animation movie are right now. It's just the yeah. It's just like it's like the best example I think. I mean I don't know what was the name of the movie. I probably have to watch it. That you were talking about.
No, we were talking about the book.
Oh, the book. Sorry, you didn't say movie.
No.
I was probably in my head.
Chris implied.
I'm quite sure I didn't mention
in my
the-
head.
I didn't mention
All right,
the-
no worries. Well, it was a nice movie in my head.
But you could compare it to a movie in which the one color is missing, for instance, but that would hardly be
Okay.
accurate, but somehow. Try to. You mean omitting one color? How difficult was it to master this kind of ability to be counterpointing all the time?
Still going on. It's like you know, it was like just start from any point, like he always says, and then this is where I am now, where I know, and everything that I want to learn. So it's constantly like, you know, looking about what you know, what you can do, and then constantly, you know, dialogue, no, that I, with Bill, with our colleagues, with a book, with an idea, with a dramaturg. You know, it's just like, and on the, you know, we're in the studio, on the field, you know what I say, is in the field, you know, like, is the battlefield being in. So you are out, very important to observe, learn, watch, but just getting I mean, he does it often. It's like, oh, let's try. Oh no, he goes in. He's like, whoa, like this is really difficult, or this it feels completely different. So it's like a pilot, hours of in-flight. You know, some people. Then it depends. Like everything. Some people are more naturally musical, or they relax. They break rules easier. You know, it depends on your background. It's a whole thing. But just keep researching. Keep the research. It's just like, what could this be? You know, from that angle, from underneath, from the, you know, what could this be in a different way? So you need to counterpoint to. Otherwise, it's always like a linear approach. Let's say.
Now that you talk about breaking rules, what do you mean?
Because we have our education. For me, for example, I was 21, very ballet, this and that, and then immediately it's like, and he's like, you know, how should I do this? I don't know. What do you think? And I was like, well, oh God, I have to break, you know, break my rules. It's not just about being bad, you know. This is, I'm just saying that you have to, just the question. You have to question yourself. We do in life all the time, but this is like on the spot. How could this be? Or what do I feel really good? And then I check the video and I'm like, wow, that's actually quite, you know, like how could it be? Or in contact with someone that you have an idea of how it could be, but that it doesn't. So you have to break the rule that patterns, like humans.
Yeah, it's more like patterns or attitudes or things that you brought with you, and that then you have to question.
So education helps you a lot, and you always have to keep educating and studying. But yet, if you don't try to break, like change this much, you cannot breathe. It's just you always hit the wall. So it's like I have to turn around so you know I can go or stop, or you know, you just have to change something, or someone changes you, or. Yeah.
I mean, I always use the example. I mean, I think what Anders says about path. If you go on that path, you know what the goal is, the end is, and so to change that, it takes a lot of interjections. And I always use the example, like Bill will maybe go, okay, we're gonna start CZ, and I'll be CZing like a mother. Somebody over on the side is going, and he goes, that's it. Like, what? But somehow, maybe somebody went, and they got to that different path, or that it came out of that, and that was their interpretation based on their experience, based on the accumulation of their training, their life, their culture, their sex, their whatever. They got to this because of how they thought. And Bill goes, that's it. And I'm sitting there going, but it was this.
So that's the education, you know, like we're being good.
But it took a while to break those things down and
I was going to
realize
say courage.
To make it courage and bravery to actually, it's still a path, but you deviate from the path, or you find new ways of interpreting, or allowing, giving yourself permission to find new ways instead of.
That would be. I learned a lot, you know, as being the inspiration. The inspiration would be for me, you know, making one many, but courage or brave, like jump. You know, okay, we're jumping off the cliff. You know, let's see what, you know. And this I had to, because I was very, you know, school and this and that. So it was. It still inspires me. It's this courage, you know. In what could this be? You know, like be. Just try. What else could this be? So you have to, and he does it. So we try every day. We keep jumping off the cliff.
So say once you jumped over the cliff, and so you're hovering in the air, and then you try to make a kind of parachute formation.
Then we counterpoint.
Then you counterpoint. but how does that would, because you have a kind of structure. Of course, in a performance, it's not whatever. I mean, you know what you're going to do more or less. You have this kind of maps even, which is not only a metaphor but sometimes a real thing that is there. I mean, mentally it's there.
Always, not sometimes. There is always our tools. We have our modalities, our tools, our variations, always. I don't remember any. There's always, like, you know, what you see in the show is like an essence. It's like a perfume. You get the essence of what the actual process working process is.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, definitely, yeah. We can.
So how would you describe then the nature of these rules that come into play? What's do you have a word for that, or do you, for the what you go for when you're busy with the performance?
I mean, we have a dance.
Yeah, sure, but
we have
that's a pretty generic.
No,
I mean, what?
We have a concept. I mean, there is a concept, an idea that can change because I mean, we prepare. We're inspired by movies, books, music, anything. Live. Bill is always, very in contact with live, the art world, technology. So we have, let's say, an idea, a theme, and then we work. We make, let's say, in the practical way, we make material, a lot of, which turn into tools, and into ideas, into variations, into an entire group dance, or a whole theater piece. And then from that's why you can keep jumping, because you have a parachute. You know what I mean? Or but you don't know where you're going. But you definitely, we've been material, like tons of material. No, this is like, oh, here we go again, another foot pattern. But that is just like, that is just like the starting point. Yeah, it's just like, okay, a cup. Okay, what is it for? What could we do with, and then it just inflates and becomes. Yeah, very big, and then you reduce it to make the show. But that's why we have a lot of hours and hours in the studio. We know each other so much, no?
No, but I was wondering about what is then happening during the show. So you have this tons of materials and ideas and things with you, but.
So it is. I mean, in this particular show is a lot of ideas and sections from some material, some pieces that we had before, and it becomes dialogical, it's conversational. So we have a setting that we try in the studio alone, and then okay, you with this with that, and then just we work on it, and we rehearse, we work it. So it is improv. It is not like a happening that we just put it. When we're on stage, we have this baggage of information, a lot of information that we can, like a computer, like a brain, and the body knows. You can choose on the spot because you know already, and then things that you don't know will appear because it's improv. So you have to. I have this concept, but I try it in this other way, and I have to counterpoint because oh God, he's also moving all the time. So I have to back up or run out, or then it
never happens that you think like, if he stops, then I can continue.
Yeah, also, yeah, of course, yeah, yes, on and off.
But I was thinking like what you describe, if I'm not mistaken, is less of a concept than a kind of score. Actually, it's a kind of that you start with, or that you.
Musically speaking, is a score or a theme and variations, choreography. No, I mean it is like this, but then it's also theatrical. Is emotional.
A score can be anything, of course.
Exactly. Yeah, of course. So there is an order. There is a beginning and end. We have our scenes. Just this half a second speed reaction, or even less, is this. Bill likes this from the human body, the trained human, dancers that we are, that we can make decisions on the spot. Mm-hmm. So these things happen that you would never expect, or that if you would choreograph how I just roll down and from the chair, I'll be like, okay. I mean, I could, and sometimes we do, but then it's like, okay, then 15 ways, or do it in backwards, do it half, fragment it. We always try to just see it, analyze it from 20 other ways at least. No? So that's why it becomes interesting, because it's the material, the improv, the idea, the structure, but it's alive in the inside.
Is it addictive?
Yeah.
Do this?
Also highly addictive. Yeah, it's gonna to stuff.
Well, 15 years, 20 years, 11 years, I think it's like crack.
Did you ever work for yourselves? Make your own work? I was wondering. And how do you take these experiences out of it, or do you work with it, or
No.
no,
Yes,
but
of
I
course.
mean, but
Yeah,
but
yeah, of
what,
course.
what is
I mean, when you work so long in one place with like actually a very small number of people, because there's actually not so much change over the years in the company. There is, I think, since it started, like over like a little under 100 people who worked with Bill. I think dancers from Frankfurt Ballet to now. So it's not so much. So I mean, it's like you entrain yourself also. You're like influenced from this, and this forms you in a sense as an artist, and then all the ideas are related. So you cannot separate yourself from your own environment. You can bring it further, maybe in another direction, but it is highly connected.
do you also have contact with former dancers? Do they often come back?
Yeah, yeah. No, like Christine and
Francesca Corotti is
very
teaching class
often,
for us
yeah.
now. Yeah.
Yeah. And do you feel that it has developed this methodology that you're describing now over the years, or that it has become richer or more complex, or
I mean, richer, of course, because we have, it is being always, speaking of the courage or like, okay, what could this be? What could, this question and this asking yourself, where this dance going? What could this be? I believe, at least in any case, richer, because everything you did in the past is all there. And it's all there, less like DNA is in the bodies if we performed it or, and then now it's just like, yeah, but what now? So it is a new, always...
So that's why I think the word methodologies is a little bit square, because it means it somehow is contained into a method, and I feel like we're not at all interested in that. It's actually trying to explode the idea of methods and continually peeling layers back.
No, but I was just wondering, because you now and then you do an older piece again, and do you, for instance, use also video recordings to watch it again, or do you work from memory mainly, or how? Because as you describe it, I would think that memory is an extremely important part in the whole process, more than the visual image of one specific evening would be.
I think the dancers are very key in being able to pass down their information to the next person. So we're very much ballet masters within the company, giving information. Even in a piece, if I've made a combination, I'll end up sharing it with the rest of the dancers. They'll learn it, and vice versa. I'll learn some of their things. So we're constantly giving each other information, and then if I were to teach someone else my part, I'm responsible for all of the nuances, the DNA of what that means to me, so that they have a clear understanding of what it is. And then Bill obviously will tailor, make it, or open it up to their possibilities and their expertise and their strengths to make it their own. So it's just always constantly going. So we do pass information between ourselves. We do we use a video a lot. And with Freya documented a lot on Peacemaker through the years of the last maybe 8 years, 7 years of making work. So there's a lot of documentation of the work in between ourselves as well.
I was quite impressed by the Synchronous Objects, this website, in which you see this table dance, and you see kind of vectorization of movements, and it gets into very complex forms and lines and vectors. Is that of use for you, this kind of analysis, this digital analysis? Do you work with that, or it's a
No.
Well, you should look at the website. It's very interesting.
No, I was part of the research team to give all of the data for that website. But in terms of our artistry or what we do, that's not really valuable for us. It was more of a tool to show how these structures can be revealed, so that anyone could look at it and understand the alignments, the counterpoints in it, and
But I mean, something architectural, mathematical, geometrical, Lim's theorem. I mean, it goes back. It's ideas that have been used. and hypo from the the Tiepolo, the lines, the curves. It's just that this is more like we see it without, but definitely it could be a tool. It is a tool, but we already we're doing it, being it, and we are seeing it. We see all these possibilities because we've been training. So all these geometrical options, the little spaces that you wouldn't think. So it makes us always, become like this super 3D. So you're not just, that's why. So let's say we fight against unless it's wanted, we fight against the flat. I'm a dancer, or the Egyptian thing, by using always training through body contact and geometrical also, like in alien action, the whole mapping. You mentioned mapping and this and that. I remember Lim's theorem, the whole projection. It's just many other pieces. Somehow now in this film, it became, because of the technology and what we can do today, it's more obvious on time, and that's what we are seeing and producing. So we're not doing like Port de Bras.
Yeah. We are that. So they're just making an animation.
Yeah.
And we have to be that, so that when I do this, Under does that. So he can read, it's a cue for him to begin, or for Cyril to begin, or entire group to begin, that I have to be that curve or that line clearly, so that it gives information, or I receive information, and the structure keeps flowing. So the animation doesn't really bring anything to us because we are already animated.
And it's like a grid also, so it has this linear way in the whole thing. Yeah, so
it was the second time, but maybe one thing, do you sometimes go and see what happened? Like, do you also try out release technique, for instance, or these no? Yeah, I mean, it's just I was just curious, because it's of course there's different techniques, and
I think we all have different backgrounds.
Yeah,
and so all of it comes into play. We had some people who were trained in release technique, or contemporary, or a modern technique, and ballet technique for sure. But we don't focus on a technique. Hip hop, breakdancing, voguing, no technique.
So we are open. It is welcome to, it's not like this is only this again.
But it's kind of information that also comes in, but it's not something that is purposefully sought for. It's something that seeps in from different sides. That's more. You're like an open vessel, and water comes in from all sides, and then something is brewing.
Yeah.
It sings.
It sings.
Well, you never know.
What I wanted to say, I just remember about the synchronous objects, because of often about counterpoint and geometrical architecture, that I do believe that the audience sees that. Only that in that, so often in choreography, Viola always says you give it on a plate, like it's this, we're looking about that corner, but I do believe that the audience, when he's not, oh, nice Port de Bras. They're checking. The human body is like super intelligent, super sensitive, and we see that. We see the things that happen in between. Mm-hmm. So that this whole, the synchronous object is just highlighting, wow, this and that. But I do believe, not exactly like this, but the audience, in many performances, they see far, near, connection, down, up, counterpoint, togetherness, huge curve, punk, collapsing. The audience sees that. Give a chance to the audience to see and decide what they can.
Surely they can, but it's good you bring up the audience, because then also you have this tendency, or this faculty of the audience to see. You have also this other tendency of the audience to want to see, and they want to see something that maybe is not there. And then you could be in a very tight spot if they want to see something and you don't give it, or you give it too much of it, or too.
There comes courage again. The courage is like, okay, yes, but what does he want to say? What do I want to say? And I remember, doing Room as it was. I don't know if it was London or New York or so. And then we were like, this is what we are. Like a piece that maybe we thought it was a bit harder for the audience, or for that theater, in the end they really liked. And then we're saying with Dana also, we're like, this is what we are, this is what we do. just before going, because we're like, oh, you know, you're doubting and this and the silence, and I said, this is what we do, and it's a great idea, a good concept. So what they expect, you know. Okay, I mean, I guess, I don't know, as a director, and you always need a balance, no? I'm not a director, but yeah, it's like, you stick to your guns. And that's why I talk about about courage, you know.
It's I think actually there were two images that came up today, and they're both valid. I think is the one was Dana this morning already said DNA, and you just inadvertently brought it up again, and the other is this counterpoint. It's like you have the kind of living organism, and I mean it's like the mental and the mental part and the living part of a piece. It's like the DNA is the heart, and the counterpoint is the more brainy part, or the.
Let me give an example. So for a room as it was, we had probably 12 combinations of material set A, B, C, D, one piece. 12 of those where we actually had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Right, real choreography. 12 of those different things. That was clear. We started a structure. We put A plus B equals C. We structure, in, out, music, on, off, blah, blah. Day before the performance, we had 6 weeks of this. Day before the performance, out the window, gone. Structure all gone. But because we'd worked 6 weeks with all of those thematics, we made the thematics all together. We rehearsed the thematics every day for 7 hours, 8 hours. We had this structure, we had these relationships, we had duos and trios based on those thematics, adding tasks and different modalities, adding music, what it meant to the structure, what it meant to the physicality, and then it was all gone. But then a new structure emerged immediately, and we had in the DNA, we had in our physical selves, all of the knowledge that was there before for those 6 weeks that we trained ourselves, plus the years and years of experience before that that allow us to be spontaneous enough to adapt to that situation. So that's what I think that what's important about the DNA is that it's in our bodies so much that if it was originally and da da ba, you can go da da da. And it's da 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 ba. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Yeah, it's like the group as the
this
body
says
thinks,
it all.
Yeah, so you said the thinking, always like the thinking body. The body knows this DNA, you call it whatever you want, and as a group, as an entity, it's almost impossible. But somehow you think together. So we're
It's
we're
this kind
dancing.
of very strange thing
Exactly,
of
we're dancing, but it's alive. Is an alive thing that is there, thinking, and yeah.
That made. Thank you very much. It was very enlightening for me to hear you talk about it.